Hey, welcome back. We are very excited to bring you the Mighty Linguini versus Watsy Gavin. Um, we have Tron versus Mono Black Coffers, both decks that we've seen in action. We're expecting this to be competitive, and we wouldn't be surprised to see either player win, though this will probably be a little bit faster and more explosive than the last couple of matches you've watched.
Yeah, I think so. I think this may be the fastest matchup we've had. Maybe exception of me versus Carolyn. I actually really like Carolyn's decision to keep this hand, even though it doesn't have Tron on turn 3. It's something you hear a lot. Oh, although it does have Tron on 3 actually. But just the fact that she's on the play against in a slower matchup with the ability to rebuild through a Field of Ruin. I feel like this is just almost exactly the kind of hand you want to be keeping on the play in the matchup.
Yeah, that's cool to see because, if you gave someone Tron who'd never seen Tron before, they'd have no idea what they're doing. But if you gave Tron to somebody who had just like read a primer or been given some tips or played a couple of matches, they probably would have done the formulaic move of mulliganing that hand due to not having the guaranteed Tron. But it's nice to see someone like Caroline who has enough reps to know, like, well, when should I deviate from the default, and
Yeah, exactly.
make a unintuitive decision.
And this is the best card Liberated I've seen in probably 4 years. I can't remember the last time I saw just turn 3 card Liberated on the play. Game basically over. These Cabal Coffers can't tap for any mana.
Yeah, this is the matchup for it, right? Like another deck that's trying to go big with lands. Karn Liberated is not necessarily a staple, or it's not ubiquitous in Tron anymore. Is that true?
I would say that that's true. I think that it has kind of been relegated to very, very borderline as far as the top end threat options go. I think that there are better options for the most part, but you can still play one or two if you feel like the metagame is right for it.
So it looks to me like Gavin's going to have to pay the iron price here. He can make his land drop, Field of Ruin, a Tron piece to get a swamp, and then like pitch his whole hand to the March to try to damage the Karn. But it's only going to get worse and worse from here.
I think so, especially seeing that Ulamog over there, and Gavin even is in a spot where he needs Caroline to not exile a land, and Gavin would need to top deck a land that actually taps for mana too, because the only other land in hand is Cabal Coffers at the moment. But I think we'll see a liquid metal coating here, and then maybe Gavin could top deck exactly Urborg to have a chance of casting another spell this game.
Good news, guys. If you're watching live, Honorog says it's not too late to predict who's going to win this game. So if you really got a feeling, if you feel like you got a good hunch, be sure to make your predictions.
This would be one of the wildest comebacks in Magic history, though, if Gavin can somehow cobble this together.
Yeah, Mike, I've played a lot against Tron in my lifetime, and you get to these spots where it's like, all right, maybe I can beat what they have on the board if they like don't have a strong follow-up and thread the needle and just barely tread water. You know what? They always have a strong follow-up. That's just the way the deck is built. Like, you're gonna work hard to stabilize the situation, and then you're gonna get Ulamog, you're gonna get Cityscape Leveler, and I would be, as you said, I'm really, really impressed if Gavin can survive here.
Yeah, these are the kind of fun games of Magic, though, where you recognize have such a small chance to win, but just the dream of winning in these kind of spots can be kind of fun. And the rare situations it happens, it's pretty special. I do think that Gavin is deciding, do I want to exile which two of my black cards do I want to exile to March of Wretched Sorrow to kill Karn the Great Creator? I feel like there's not a good option here, so I don't envy being in Gavin's shoes very much. But kudos to him for still taking the time to figure it out. Looks like Gavin is opting to keep the Thoughtseize in the hand of all the black cards. Karn the Great Creator dies. Gavin has now the life total advantage up to 24. I think that we'll see Caroline get another Tron piece, cast Ulamog, and advances to the game 2.
Yeah, looks like that's about it. If you can get the flawless victory, opponent having 0 permanents, it's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Unlike your deck, Everett, where you often win the game with like 1 or 0 permanents left. All the eggs.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, kind of the opposite. I think I did that the first game of today's stream. I think I sacrificed almost everything but just the Inkmoth Nexus.
Yeah, now that was the only match that Caroline played so far, and you kind of steamrolled. Like you really were able to put on super fast clock. She mulliganed. Mm-hmm. So it's nice now with Caroline winning that game 1 that we've kind of seen everyone's deck able to do its thing. Now, from my perspective, I'm not necessarily looking forward to the prospect of playing against Tron in my match. But for the purpose of the broadcast, we want to see everyone get to play. We want to see what all these decks can do.
Yeah, for sure. I think that this is a game that really highlights an issue that Mono Black Coffers has. Your deck is full of Fatal Push and Damnation and Bloodchief's Thirsts. And your sideboard is also largely dedicated to artifacts for Karn the Great Creator, which means that in these spots, you're going to have a lot of dead cards. I'm really curious, like you see Gavin boarding in Engineered Explosives here, not because this is a card that is good, but because it's a card that has some text as opposed to a card like Fatal Push, which is almost completely blank.
Yeah, that's a really awesome point. In my years of playing like Jund and other black mid-range decks, I find it so important to do kind of the sideboard mapping and make sure you have configurations you're happy with, cards to bring in and out in every matchup. And having a couple like all-purpose slots is really nice for exactly what you mentioned. Like, I have a dead card in my main deck. I need to swap it in for something that's at least reasonable in all matchups. But the more you go in on the Karn Wish sideboard, the tougher it is to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Which makes the deck building portion of Coffers really interesting. I think that the archetype is one of the coolest for like tweaking and tuning and fine-tuning things.
What other decks did you consider bringing for today?
I've been honestly pretty locked into Scales for a while. I kind of wanted to get a feel for what everyone else was doing, and there was a while where I was trying to metagame a little bit. I thought that Caroline would play Tron. I thought that Gavin would play Merfolk for some reason. And I thought that you would play Jund or Yogg. But then I kind of was thinking about it more, and I'm like, well, I think that people are mostly just going to play something else to try to not be predictable. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of wanted to play the deck I've been playing in tournaments lately, which has been Scales. I've been registering it a lot for tournaments and enjoying it a lot. I'm very curious to hear how you got to your list. It is so cool.
Yeah. It was really fun. There's first the element of, like you said, not wanting to be predictable. Like, okay, I'm playing against Reed today. Like, let me put a couple extra Veil of Summers in my sideboard. That dynamic, it's valuable to not necessarily play the same deck every single time. And then also, like, I think this is a great opportunity for just showing off some cool stuff. And Everett, like, between you and me, our week is the most fun week, right? Like this crew of 4 players. You're not going to see a bunch of Rakdos versus Rhinos over and over and over again, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think of all the weeks so far, our lists have been the sweetest, with maybe mine being the least sweet, to be honest.
Well, I mean, you certainly put on a show gameplay wise, so that can be forgiven.
Too nice. I'm also like incredibly excited that Explosives was really good this game. I don't think I've ever seen Engineered Explosives be like an actively good card against Tron, but just played turn 1, killed Expedition map turn 2. It's something like you can almost never see Mono Black do, destroy an Expedition map. Very, very funny.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like, Tron is so good at letting you not cast your spells in a relevant way, not interact. So anytime you can just get any trade, like, oh, I killed the expedition map, it feels so good.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gavin is in, I think, very good position here. Caroline mulligan to 5. We get to Field of Ruin to guarantee no Tron next turn. We get to play Karn the Great Creator to turn off the map. There's going to be kind of an interesting Karn fight here. I don't know who's favored from this spot, but I would probably put the advantage bar towards Gavin just because the Stony Silence is so much more relevant for him than for her.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you already see expedition map and One Ring turned off. I also really like Gavin's position having the backup Field of Ruin so that Caroline can't, quote unquote, natural Tron. And then, yeah. Okay. So I was going to say getting the first to turn liquid metal coating on would be nice, although Karn prevents that from happening. But maybe if Gavin's willing to just do a big March of Wretched Sorrow and get the liquid metal coating going, like he can lock up the game even if it costs him a lot of resources to do so.
Yeah, I think that there's a good chance that Caroline pluses on the expedition map to pressure the Karn, which may make it difficult for the March to kill the Karn this turn. Although it looks like Gavin would at least just be able to spend mana and pitch enough to kill the Karn. Although Caroline is going down, I'm very curious what she's going to get here.
Not that I've ever played this matchup, but in Pioneer, when you face this Karn versus Karn thing, one card I always consider is Sky Sovereign. That's probably not in the Tron deck.
I don't think that it is. I actually think that the One Ring has been a big Karn killer in these kind of games where you have Ring, they turn off your Ring with their Karn, but then all of a sudden you can play your Karn, animate the Ring, and hit their opposing Karn for 4.
That old secret +1 ability, very nice.
But it does look like Gavin's going to be able to kill Karn, play Coding, and start Stone Raining every single turn. And this lock is so hard for Tron to come back from in this kind of position where you will never be able to Tron again. Caroline can't draw land plus Karn. I don't know that there is a series of draws that can get her out of the situation.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those old-fashioned like smokestack locks where there's just no escape.
Mm-hmm. The Field of Ruin doesn't help either. Gavin also has some pressure with the Bowmaster. Bowmaster can get, I guess not with a Karn the Great Creator in play, but can get pretty big against the Chromatic Stars and Chromatic Spheres sometimes. Well, she at least has protection from everything this turn.
All right. Something. Well, one flawless victory deserves another. Are we going to see yet another player concede the game with 0 lands on the battlefield?
Yeah, I think there's a chance. Caroline hasn't conceded yet, so I don't see any reason for her to concede now. I do think that play draw is going to matter a ton in this matchup. If Caroline has any kind of like reasonable 7-card hand, 6-card hand on the play, it's going to be very tough for Gavin to win, since Field of Ruin is your best interaction for Tron, but that doesn't come in online until turn 3 on the draw, and at that point it may be too late. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a more corner case play draw interaction came up this game with the Engineer Explosives on the expedition map, but these things matter.
And I was trying to envision what kind of draw we could have to get out of this. Boseiju is something that can disrupt the lock here.
Okay, so maybe that's what Caroline was playing too. Yeah. I was trying to think. There's no like direct way to kill a Planeswalker in the Tron deck, but Boseiju to kill the coding, it's something. But you just look at how far ahead Gavin is on just basically every metric. Don't forget he could just get something else with the Karn. It's not quite Thundering Titan mana, but
I imagine we will. I mean, there aren't a ton of great things to get here. Maybe Gavin has a Ring in the sideboard to grab. Maybe you could do the very slow plan of grab like Tormod's Crypt, exile your Coding, and then get Coding again next turn. Although,
how do you feel about 6 mana, 6/5?
It is Troll is so good. It is so randomly good in the Coffers deck. I've lost to it a bunch. It is unblockable effectively. It's blocking with 3 creatures is so difficult, and It attacks from like a weird, unique angle. The card is like a legit threat in the deck. Ring can also be a 4-mana 4/4. And then the Chromatic Star is still locked. We can Sylvan Scrying for Tron land, but I agree with the decision to just go to game 3, keep a 7-card hand with Card Liberated again, and win.
Okay, folks. Well, this is it for all the marbles. The 1-1 bracket, game number 3. The winner of this game advances to the winner's bracket. The loser goes to the loser's bracket. What does that mean? It means that both players are still in the league. You'll get to see them both in future weeks, but your standing is just much more favorable from the winner's bracket, where you're really in striking distance for that playoff position.
Yeah, so remind me exactly how the structure works. We're going to be doing these pre-top 8 leagues. We're going to each player is going to play 4 different weeks. Is that how it works into top 8?
Okay, so everyone plays their first week and gets sifted into winner's bracket or loser's bracket.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the winners are going to do it all again, and if you go 2-1 in your next group, then you're on to the playoffs. The losers are going to do it all again. If you get 2 losses in your next group, you're eliminated from the league.
Okay.
And then there's one more round for the 1-1s. So it's basically like what we're doing today. Expand that and just do it again on a larger scale over the course of many, many weeks.
Makes sense. Very exciting. Very interesting. Both players have their mana engine, Tron and Urborg Coffers, but neither player really has any meaningful pressure beyond that. Gavin doesn't have any disruption for Tron, doesn't have any discard effects, and Caroline doesn't have any top end threats either. Could maybe cycle Chromatic Star into something, but
now if you opened the Urzatron 101 textbook, it would say to keep this hand. Would you agree with that? Like
I would agree that you should be keeping this hand just on a very surface level. My understanding of piloting normal mono green Tron is not super comprehensive. It's not a deck that I'd even consider myself particularly proficient in. So I could absolutely see like a more expert level player saying, I need to do something very impactful turn 3 on the play in this matchup. On the draw, I think this is like a hand that I would love to keep on the draw in this matchup. Like you're going to symbol Tron turn 4, you're going to do your thing. But just because Field of Ruin isn't online till turn 3, I really want to slam something on the play here. But again, there's also the dynamic of mulliganing against the Thoughtseize deck that you have to take into mind. And it seems this is one of the closest hands I've seen in a while, I think.
Yeah, the good news is you have the Chromatic Star, so you have at least 3 cards before to find something for turn 3. Ancient Stirrings is turned on because of the star. Even Relic is another cantrip.
Yeah, I think the keep is pretty reasonable, and I'm excited to see how the hand develops. I'm excited to see if this Bowmaster is going to be pretty meaningful pressure against the Chromatic Star and the Relic. I think, assuming that she's just going to be doing some cycling, we're going to have at least 4 power over on Gavin's board, which is not something you usually see out of the Coffers deck this early.
Okay, so this is looking good for Caroline. You cycle the Chromatic Star, you cast the Ancient Stirrings, you see 6 more cards, looking for a Karn of any flavor, maybe a Wormcoil Engine. Or not quite at Ulamog, but you could easily envision her getting there.
Yeah, Ulamog is definitely the kind of card, like, as soon as you draw it, like, you could feel confident that it's going to resolve at some point over the course of this kind of matchup. Warping Whale is an interesting one. Could get the Bowmaster off the field if we want to cycle the Relic this turn. I imagine that the Stirrings is going to get cast after the trigger resolves, though. Notably, 1 mana short of casting Wormcoil if we find it. Caroline finds Oblivion Stone.
Okay, that's kind of action, depending on the circumstances.
It's yeah. I mean, Stone is pretty rough in this matchup where it doesn't kill Ring and it can't kill Karn either. Can clean up Shieldred, can clean up Bowmasters though, which is what Gavin has at the moment. So is lining up okay against Gavin's draw of no Field of Ruin, no Karn, no Ring. And then if Caroline's going to hold up Warping Well, I kind of like that. You could maybe, I guess, protect Relic from a Thoughtseize is maybe not exactly accurate, but yeah, that is the way you're going to find something powerful to do here at least. Although it looks like, well, it's definitely a very tricky spot. I'm not sure if that's what I do here or not. Oh, and off the top, there is a Field of Ruin. Although I guess there's plenty of Sylvan Scryangs in the hand over there.
Yeah, that's another thing to like about Caroline's hand is if Gavin keeps, on the strength of having like 1 or 2 Field of Ruin effects, then you can at least rebuy your fallen Tron pieces in the long run.
I wonder if we'll see. I guess it's unlikely we'll see the Warping Will do anything. I imagine we probably just want to lead into the Oblivion Stone to clean up the board.
Do you have a system for what Tron land you go after in a spot like this?
Yeah, usually I will not go after Tower if I'm going to activate Field of Ruin in the spot. Any of the other 2 are fine. Kind of I suppose you want to target the one that they play second in theory, but there's this like weird sub meta game where Tron players know that, so you want to sometimes target the one they play first. But really, just any non-tower one is fine, because if you're going to get your opponent to like let's say in this spot that there's no Sylvan Scrying, but there is an Expedition map, Caroline would have to tap all 3 lands in order to get the 3rd Tron piece, which would leave her with 1 less mana, as opposed to if you could tutor up Tower.
Gotcha.
But with Sylvan Scrying, I don't think it ever really matters. You're always going to have 5 mana to follow up, which is enough to hold up an Oblivion Stone activation. That seems like what Caroline's going to opt for, which lines up very well against the Shieldred and Gavin's hand. Gavin currently doesn't have too many options in hand, but we could just very easily see a Karn, the Great Creator, off the top. Maybe see another Field of Ruin off the top. Oh, going back for the Relic, which I like. I like this line. Like you can like holding up Ostone is only good against Shieldred, but Ostone will be good against Shieldred anyways. So just getting the Relic out, making sure that you can get a cycle down seems fine.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. I really liked how Tron decks have adapted to have like 1 or 2 Urza Sagas as their utility lands of choice. I remember like when Modern Horizons 2 was first coming out, Tron players were jamming 4 for a while and kind of deemed that plan to be bad. And only like very recently with the Pro Tour, like Team Handshake, have like just 1 or 2 Saga over like Sanctum of Ugin been deemed the appropriate utility land of choice. And I think it's been a nice little small innovation to the Tron archetype.
Yeah, just something that you can find with Expedition Map and Scrying if you have all the mana in the world and need some action.
Yeah, exactly. And like one thing I never really liked about Sanctum of Ugin being that card is that if you have no action and you have all these Sylvan Scryings to search up a utility land, Sanctum of Ugin requires you to have something big for the card to do anything in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like Gavin is gonna opt to just try to Bowmaster, maybe get an extra trigger against the Relic of Progenitus Sacrifice. I think it's good to cast it here, even though you're playing into the O-Stone. You get the extra trigger. You have to force the O-Stone and try to clear the way for Shieldred here.
Yeah, this is a pretty typical like playing around board sweepers moment where you have to not play everything so that you can rebuild afterwards, but you have to play enough that your opponent is respecting your board presence and has to actually invest the mana and use the Oblivion Stone.
Yeah, one of the hardest skills I think to like master in Magic. Like how much do you commit into the sweeper? Another Haywire Might has entered the hand. It looks like... Well, yeah, I'm curious if we're going to main phase the O-Stone so we can play the Mites. I guess playing the Mites doesn't have almost any value. You holding those seems fine. We can also...
Yeah, so Mites can hit the One Ring if it's drawn naturally, but they can't really do that much against many of the Karn targets.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they could attack Karn for 2, I suppose, but that's not really enough. I think holding them here makes sense. The Seiju can also potentially kill the Cabal Coffers, which isn't super relevant now, but is relevant if Gavin draws a Karn. A little less options with what to do with that.
So, wow, I mean, the dust has settled, and Caroline fully has not drawn an action card besides that Oblivion Stone, which is, only technically an action card. So if she continues to have the top of the library not deliver, she's going to, make some constructs with Urza Saga and then get another expedition map?
Probably would get a Chromatic Star Sphere so that you can just try to cycle into something big, but that, I suppose that line is not very good into active Shieldred, which is going to win the game really fast. Maybe you can chump block with a Haywire Might for a turn, which also gains you a bit of life, so you could maybe have more luxury to cycle. But if the top of her library is kind to her, we're going to win the game, and if not, it's going to be a tough to beat the Shieldred.
So Gavin is actually playing that game where it's like, all right, my Tron opponent has all the mana in the universe, and I'm just playing to beat what's on the board and hoping they don't draw anything. But he's doing it successfully. We talked about how he put on just enough pressure to make her use the Oblivion Stone. Now the Shieldred can get the game over with pretty quickly. Another brick for Caroline. Don't forget, she has the Saga, so she can make some blocks. It's not over yet, but she may only get one more draw step in this game.
Yeah, I think she has a second Saga in the deck too that she could grab now just to get ahead on board going forward. There's not a Blast Zone, is there? Maybe I need to check the list.
Let's have a look. No Blast Zone. But you are right about 2 Urza Sagas.
Let's see. And Gavin can kill the Might pretty easily. Can kill the Might and the Construct to get in a little bit extra damage. So Caroline goes up to 11, down to 7.
And then down to 5. And then if it's... Okay, but then she has more blockers, so... Good.
Yeah,
Between 1 and 3 more draw steps, I guess.
It is very interesting how much Modern has become about drawing cards versus punishing your opponent for drawing cards. It feels like there's bean decks, there's ring decks, and then there's a lot of Shieldreds and Bowmasters to punish those strategies.
Yeah, it's funny. I had been working on this Beanstalk Time Walks deck, and I had a version up until yesterday where I had multiple Stody Silences in my sideboard, and I wasn't playing the One Ring. And it turns out that would have been awesome for today.
Yeah.
I at the last minute, I cut my Stony Silences. I played the One Ring myself, but then it's everyone has Karn, million Shouldreds and Bowmasters to punish the One Ring. So it's weird. It's do you want to join them or do you want to beat them? And clearly, cards like the One Ring are just so powerful, but everyone's out to get you.
Yeah, that's I think a tension you have with the Hardened Scales deck is playing Pithing Needles to beat your opponent's rings versus playing the rings yourself. I opted to do both. I main decked the Pithing Needle today just in case you were on Yawgmoth. Like the Scales Yawgmoth matchup is so rough unless you have a main deck Needle. Okay, so Gavin is up to 22. I imagine that the Construct is going to try to chump, but it's going to get edicted by Shieldred.
Flavorful. So then Gavin drew another removal spell, but Caroline can make 2 Constructs next turn with Chapter 3 and Chapter 2. So the game should continue, but it's really crunch time. I mean, Caroline has not drawn anything, gone through 1/3 of her library so far, and just needs a little help off the top.
Yeah, this just like you said, this is very, very classic Modern. Just a little bit of pressure against Tron, and just hoping they brick for like 3 or 4 turns in a row. And that is the bare minimum, but certainly puts Caroline ahead.
Yep, just 1 for 1 against Sheoldred, and then is there enough mana to? So you can't really make the first construct because that one would die to the stone. I mean, unless you want to somehow not crack the stone right away and like try to block for a turn and put some fate counters. But
Yeah,
anyway, I was just talking through, like, it seems the dust is going to settle and Caroline's going to have a clean board and probably 2 construct tokens from chapter 2 and chapter 3 of the remaining saga.
Yeah, I think so. She's wisely gotten Chromatic Star instead of Chromatic Sphere. If you get Chromatic Sphere here, you're going to end up either not getting the card or taking 2 more damage from Sheoldred. But because Chromatic Star draws a card whenever it goes to the graveyard, you can sack the Oblivion Stone and get your card after the Sheoldred is off the table.
So you're saying you don't even activate the star?
Yeah, don't even activate the star. Just let it go to the graveyard after the stone is destroyed. And I like main phasing this too, so we could maybe just get another Star Sphere into play. Play around. I guess Bowmaster still could get you, but that's okay. All right.
Okay, so now Gavin needs to re-establish a clock before before the Tron player draws anything. This is good.
What's so funny about this ring draw is Caroline just drew 2 of her mites, both of her Haywire mites already this game. There's not a Haywire mite to get off this Urza saga.
Yeah, it's true. They got killed in Thoughtseize. Now, does she have a Pithing Needle? Probably not in the main deck, or in her library. Probably not.
We'll see. That like there is one in the sideboard, but so were those Haywire mites at the beginning of this match. So maybe the Pithing Needles snuck their way in.
All right, we're gonna see how the Mighty Linguini chose to sideboard for this fateful game 3.
I actually really like the decision to board a Needle potentially, where you're never going to want to Karn, or you're not often going to want to Karn for Needle, since your Karn already shuts off Oblivion, the One Ring anyways. Although 2 Haywire mites is probably enough tutor targets.
So Caroline did not make a construct there.
I think that's probably okay, where Gavin's at 20, has protection from everything. Maybe you just are trying to dig for Ulamog or Karn.
Sure.
Make sure the MagicOnline is working properly with this attack. All right. Good. Okay. That is a very good draw. Being at 5 life is maybe a tiny bit concerning, but I would be happy to draw the ring here.
I like Caroline's 1 ring more than I like Gavin's 1 ring.
Yeah, I think so.
Although you make a good point about the life total, and if Gavin's deck is designed to win the 1 ring battles. If he finds Bowmaster, Sheoldred, or Karn, I could be singing a different tune, but just by sheer like power of top decks and amount of mana, I like Caroline's position. And boy, that is a powerful top deck.
Not castable this turn, but going to be very hard for Gavin to win if he doesn't draw.
She also can't get Thoughtseized, right? Because of the protection.
That's true, yeah. Karn, huge top deck, turning off the ring, but Ulamog can just come down, exile Karn and the ring immediately. And Gavin notably doesn't have Cabal Coffers this game to have a super big turn or anything. I think... I mean, and then I guess Shieldred's Edicts can kill the Ulamog. Usually very difficult for mono black decks to deal with indestructible creatures, but Not only can Children's Edict answer it, it can even just make you sacrifice a non-token creature so the construct can't block for the removal spell. I don't know what we're going to get. Maybe liquid metal coating. Maybe random Phyrexian Metamorph, or the Metamorph is in Caroline's sideboard, I think, not Gavin's. Yeah, never mind.
So Gavin doesn't know what's in Caroline's hands. So he's still playing in the world where like, all right, I hope my opponent doesn't have much. What you have to worry about on the board here is you don't want to somehow let your Karn get killed by the opposing construct and then free up the One Ring. So the coding is, I guess that's nice to consider for next turn, but I would be careful if you play that and use it in the opponent's upkeep, then they just kill your Karn and then you're out of luck.
Mm-hmm. There's maybe a scenario where Caroline draws like a 1-mana artifact and then tries to bait a Shieldred's Edict on the construct by attacking the Karn. And then, having the Ulamog survive. It would be like a really high level play that would just like, totally forget about ever dealing damage with the construct. It probably is like really unrealistic play, but sometimes like just watching both players' hands can.
Yeah, so from our perspective, Gavin would be best served to pitch one march to the other.
She's doing it. This is awesome.
But with his lack of knowledge, it makes total sense that he would use the Shieldred's Edict, and this is going to work out really poorly for him.
This is an incredible line that I think if I was like just not looking at either hand, I don't think I would have like ever pulled the trigger on this.
Yeah, really nice one.
And then now there's just all of a sudden no answer for the Ulamog, no action for Gavin, and going to be very, very tough to beat without good top decks.
And if Caroline does not activate her One Ring anymore, then the Ulamog will outrace her own life loss. So that's good for her. Doesn't need to find anything more.
Wow, this was an awesome play. Okay, so I guess it's going to come down to Gavin's top deck next turn, assuming Caroline isn't tinted by the ring and draws the extra cards. It does look like a Shieldred would win the game, so there's maybe some concern for trying to play around top deck Shieldred by just tapping your ring.
What about that Urborg though? Urborg plus Dismember.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it's more so Gavin's library size than life total that matters, as far as just shrinking the. For Caroline's Dismember, I see. I don't.
Yeah. I was just responding to your comment about Shieldred being a possible win.
I don't know how I just said like the Dismember has been such a blank card in her hand for so long. I just had forgotten it was there. But yes, I think that because you have Dismember for Shieldred, you just don't want to tap the ring. That is the same conclusion. She comes here after some thought, which is great. Karn Liberated is in play now. Things are looking really good. With the Dismember in hand, I'm not sure what it is Gavin's trying to hope to top deck.
Now, I always want to think the March of Wretched Sorrow gives -X, but it's just damage, right? That's totally ineffective against Ulamog. You can gain life, but then you'll just die to the decking.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and can pretty freely draw 2 cards here. I like this a lot. Although I suppose now...
Bowmasters, though.
Yeah, Bowmaster is a problemo.
So is that what it's going to come down to, is one draw step for Orcish Bowmasters?
Yeah, I think that perhaps another copy of Shieldred's Edict, if there are any more Shieldred's Edicts in the deck for Gavin, could buy enough time for the ring to kill Caroline. But I think Bowmaster is
there's more of those in the deck. Oh, okay. There we go. Great.
Nice.
Another play that was invisible to me. This is awesome. Like, I don't think I would have pulled the trigger on the O-Stone, bait the strategic line. That line was great. And Carolyn liberated, exile your own ring. I don't know that I've ever seen a player pull the trigger on that, but it was super, super meaningful here.
Yeah, great move. Really like that.
And just holding up the O-Stone activation too, which can be good against a Karn plus liquid coating.
So,
there's a shield.
So Gavin is like, he sees the light at the end of the tunnel here. If I can, oh no, because the ring is gone. The ring is gone. Yeah, so against the Oblivion Stone and losing the rest of your library, this can't do it, right?
Yeah, I can't do it. I would love to see the very classy triple black dismember line here. That would be a good flex to end this game. Just goes for the respectable Oblivion Stone instead, which also gets to clean up the coding. And I think we have a victor.
Yeah, so if Caroline wins this, then this is Gavin moving to the losers bracket. You'll still get to see him play in future weeks. Then the last match that you're going to see in today's broadcast is Caroline against yours truly in the 1-1 bracket, and I think that looks pretty good for Caroline. I'm not very well prepared for the Tron matchup.